Hello and welcome to the Globetrottin ADs. Since 2019, a way for athletic directors, activity coordinators, coaches, and friends to connect and collaborate no matter where they are around the world. We hope that you enjoyed the podcast and share it with anyone you think will enjoy it as well. And now, let's get this episode started.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Globetrottin ADs. Here's our episode coming to you live from Split, Croatia at the annual CEESA conference. We're once again doing a panel discussion, and we have some guests who will be guiding the program today. We want to welcome Jim Matter, Jason Cuthbert, and Nathan Whitaker. So, guys, at this time, we're just going to pass the mic a little bit. If you could just give a quick introduction about yourselves, and then we'll go ahead and get into the panel for the program.
Okay, my name is Jason Cuthbert. I am the athletic director at the American School of Warsaw. I've been overseas 27 years, 7 countries. I started off in Torreon, Mexico. Ironically, I knew Jim back then. Then went to Mexico, Philippines, Dominican, Indonesia, Cairo, Egypt, Beijing, China, and now in Warsaw for the last 7 years. So my career has been all overseas, and I've been an athletic director for 19 of those.
Thank you. I'm Nathan Whitaker, and I appreciate being here with the Globetrottin ADs and being a part of this. I am from Gainesville, Florida, where I was raised, and went off and played a couple of sports in college, and then went to law school and really didn't have the ability to stay in sports on the playing side, so figured out a way to work in professional football. And through that, got to know folks and learn leadership lessons, and that has parlayed into writing books and giving talks and speaking on leadership, team building, living a life of significance, and other things. And so I appreciate the chance to be here and to be with you all.
Thank you.
My name is Jim Matter. I'm also an international AD. I've never worked in the United States as an AD, but been overseas for 27 years and a lot of schools. I was Jason before Jason was Jason at American School of Warsaw. And then we had the opportunity, and I was so glad that he got the job at Warsaw, and we've continued our relationship now. I have 3 kids, 2 are international educators, kind of followed our footsteps. My wife's a librarian, an international librarian, and make our home in Montana. So, any Grizzlies out there?
Silence.
Just
Super.
Yeah.
Well, thanks. Any burning questions? Want to kick it off? Or you want us to kick it off? We kind of put these guys together of various backgrounds. We thought leadership, different ages, as you can see. So a lot of knowledge. Up there.
Yeah, and additionally, we've covered a lot of topics over the last couple of days with us, not only in our meeting the other day on Thursday with the CEESA group, but through the NIAAA courses we've done. So we've also had some safeguarding workshops we've done the last couple of days. So there's a lot of topics we've covered, a lot of ground. So if anything pops up related to that as well, in addition to our themes today for leadership, mentorship, things of those natures, feel free to chime in and we'll get the discussion started. So anybody want to kick it off? Okay. Well, we do have some questions just in case. Let's talk a little bit about inspiration for mentorship. So I'll just leave it over to the panel. Who do you look up to for inspiration or mentorship? Who's some folks who guided you along the way, and what have you taken from those interactions to put you in a good position for your jobs today?
They're just too polite. Personally, I've been pretty fortunate to have a lot of good coaches. Growing up, played multiple sports, played sports in college and semi-pro, and I also worked in basketball camps in the U.S. for 17 summers. I was fortunate to work with a basketball coach, Morgan Wooten, who was in the Basketball Hall of Fame. Great guy. But it really doesn't matter whether it's a Hall of Fame coach or teacher or, my first teaching job, I put Jim was an AD at the American School in Torreon, and just taking. I think Morgan Wooten used to use the word be a professional thief, and I think that's really valuable in our profession. That if you think that you know everything about this job, you're never going to progress. I think if you can steal and learn from everybody else, there's not a tournament I don't go to in CEESA or SKIS that if I go to his school, I'm looking at the wall, I'm taking pictures, looking in the gym, looking at what they do. That's how you get better. You know, there's a million ways to skin a cat. You can't imitate. I can't be Matt, or I can't be Jim or Rena or anybody, but I can take ideas and then incorporate them into what I do in my profession. And I really think in the years that I have been an educator or a coach, I feel that that's really a positive way to get better. You know, it's one of the beauties of our job is coming to places like this, because we really don't have anyone else in our school that we can sit down with and kind of break bread and talk about the job. Who not more to learn and get feedback from than people that do the same things. So I think, you know, there's a lot of inspiration in this room. You just have to see it, and when you come to these, have an open mind, and I think that's what, you know, can make you better in this profession. So.
Good answer. Just gonna follow.
Do you want us each to answer that, or if Jason nailed it? Jason nailed it. I mean, what Jason said, obviously, those are all my mentors too. No, you know, on the one hand, things like people like Tony Dungy come to mind, right? That I've been able to be around him and have him be an example for me. And after he got fired by the Bucks, then later I got fired, I was talking to him about, you know, how'd you get over the bitterness? And he was like, what bitterness? And I'm like, oh, the bitterness that I felt. And he's like, no, there's no bitterness. I just had to, you know, I was moved to a different spot. It was time to go somewhere else, and this door needed to be closed for me to go. But even more so than that, so that he's been great. But even more so than that, I look back at mentors and people who shaped me, and it's folks like the people in this room, or like some of my coaches along the way, and people you'd never know the names of, and people who taught me about, you know, I was a try-hard guy, right? I'm undersized. I'm you know, one of my college coaches said, we're just going to put you in and play you until you grow into your body, and of course, I still have yet to do that. And so. But those coaches along the way that taught me it was one thing to try hard, it was one thing to scrap and to claw and to whatever, but we're also going to do things the right way. And when you walk off the field, you want to make sure that even if it's your biggest rival, you're going to have conducted yourself in the right way. So I had a lot of mentors along the way of people that you would never know the names of, but either peers or coaches or ADs who really built into me. And I think that's, to me, that's a part of what just excites me every day, is this thought that we're all making an impact, and even when we don't realize it.
I think mentors, and you know, we have the coaches, we have the friends. But I think the family network I have has always been one of my inspirations. The people that I'm one of 10 kids, and I'm number 8 out of 10. And so I had these role models that were growing up in my household, and athletes and coaches and my parents, and so that's been a big influence of my giving those expectations to me and allowing me to go pursue this. And I had my father traveled a lot internationally, and he'd go to Bucharest and travel around, and during the old times, and he kind of put a love of travel in me, because he'd go to Germany, be gone for 2 weeks, and come back and have some German wine or something like that. So it started when I was young. I said, God, this job fits international travel, ADs, sports, and to, you know, work with you guys, and it's just been I've been so lucky.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Thanks, guys. So we'll stay on the theme of mentorship and leadership. Very challenging times these days to be a leader, especially in school settings. It was like every year there's new challenges we have to adapt to and work with, or there's new policies and procedures that we have to blend into what we're doing in our programs. So along those lines, what are the most important attributes you think of successful leaders today?
Are we going to have you start each time? Do you want to flip a coin? Do you want to just Jason run with it?
I think with a successful leader, I think in any organization or a school for that matter, is just someone that open-minded, and I think someone that has an open door policy, but that you can feel comfortable with, but also has good knowledge of what policy is about and that you can respect, and has to make the difficult decisions. We went for a walk today, and one of the people in here was talking about an old administrator just couldn't get off the fence. That's not an easy job being a leader, whether it's for us, whether it's getting rid of a coach or creating some type of thing in our program. But I think with leadership, it's just being humble and open-minded, and
Great. Yeah, I think being open, communicating well, I think that's a big problem. A lot of people avoid conflict. A lot of times it's okay at the end of the day when you talk through it, and somebody's got to make a decision, somebody's got to decide something. And sometimes it's so much better when you're transparent and you show your cards, right? And you say, okay, appreciate your input, I'm willing to listen to you, and then at the end of the day, figure out where to go from that and communicate. I clerked for 2 years after law school for a federal judge, a United States district judge. And he asked me one day, he said, Mr. Whitaker, what is the most important thing we do? And I said, well, justice and equity and whatever. And I was trying to come up with all this stuff. And he said, at our level, and we were the trial level of the U.S. court system, he said, at our level, the most important thing we do is make decisions. Because people then have to go on with their lives, and they have to figure, we may make the wrong decision, but we're going to take all the available information, we're going to apply the laws, we understand it, we're going to make a decision. And then if we're wrong, the appellate courts will tell us we're wrong, but at some level we have to make those decisions, whether we want to or not. And things would sit on my desk forever because I couldn't decide, and I'd look at it and go, I don't know. He'd say, well, Mr. Whitaker, you have to do something. You have to decide something. So I think communication, being open, that's the other thing too, is even if you're going to, I think at the end of the day, you may decide to do what you've done before, but at least if you're open and willing to revisit it, and I think people respect that if you walk through it and you say, okay, at the end of the day, the policy we had before is probably the right one, but we revisited it, we took a look at it. I think being open, communicating, and then, as you said, making some, at times, hard decisions and trying to help people walk through those with you.
I think our role as the manager, we're the middle managers of the coaches and communicator with the parents and reporting to our admin or being part of the admin team. And what I learned was better listening just helped me be a better leader. Because I wanted to be, a lot of times your athlete or your reaction is emotive and you want to you're wrong, you're doing it wrong. Or you have your first choice and just say, okay, sit back, like Nathan said, just sit back, kind of listen to what's going on and maybe try a new approach. But I learned to listen to my coaches and my parents, and most important voice was your kids, the kids. Right?
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of the things you guys are alluding to comes back to the idea of making good connections, right? Making connections, whether it's with the kids, with coaches, parents, the stakeholders in the community. So what are some strategies you would suggest or you might want to use to connect with folks?
I'll go first.
There you
go.
Sure.
Back and forth.
Yeah, I'm always second. I like that. I can always play off whoever's first. Yeah.
Well, I've watched you. Matt's the ultimate connector. You'll see him. He's got the parents, the kids. Mr. Fleming, what's going on? He's wearing the blazer suit. Was that you?
Sometimes.
But and then just being present, attending the events you have to, but the events you want to, and just being accessible, whether it's having your laptop in the cafeteria and let the kids come up. When are we practicing tonight? Well, I'll remind you again, it's 4:30 again. But just having that approach that they can come in and talk to you has been what worked for me, just being accessible, approachable. Mr. Matter's not going to yell at us. He'll probably just listen to us and then tell us to go away.
A ton of ways to do this. I'm just going to share one tiny thing that I think is I've run across that is of interest, and it's the stay interview. And some of you may have heard about this. We spend a lot of time thinking about the exit interview as somebody goes. But this concept of the stay interview, and when you've got somebody on board, coach, kid, whatever, that's just there and they're always going to be there and you can count on them and whatever, sometimes we don't hear their voice. And we just think, well, you know what, they're going to be around next year and they're always doing what. And then to sit down with them and say, okay, what is it that works well and what can we do better and how can we make your life easier and whatever. And just make sure that we're checking in at times with the people who aren't the squeaky wheels and getting that feedback and letting them feel valued and making sure they're heard. And sometimes they've got great ideas, right? I mean, yeah, I'm going to stay no matter what. But, you know, if you did X, Y, and Z, that'd make my life a lot easier. So sometimes that connecting with the person that you don't think you need to connect with or you can take for granted can be really powerful to make sure they're heard along the way.
I think also being seen. I think one of the most important things with our job is showing that you're present. You know, I try every day to, when I'm on campus, I stay till all the practices are done. I walk around. I do 2 loops where I'll go and, you know, visit every practice, make sure that I'm seen. Ask the coach if there's anything they need or anything that I can help with. But kids aren't dumb. They know when you're in or when you're out. And I think that if you show up every day and show that you care and you know, go to games and you're there because it's your passion, not because it's your job, I think kids appreciate that. Mm-hmm. And I think the more you do with them, because I think that should be number one in this type of job. If you're not doing it for the kids, I really think you're doing it for the wrong reasons. And I think when you have opportunities, you know, we'll go back to the first question about mentor. We had a guy in my city, his nickname was Shaker, Steve Cuevas, real big basketball guy. And, you know, he was always open to helping kids. And you know, you don't forget people like that gave you that opportunity to you know, they gave their time to you. And I think, you know, playing it back and doing that with kids in our program, I think kids really appreciate it more so when they leave the program, that, you know, you cared. So.
Awesome. Oh, we have a first question.
All right. Yeah, I don't want to hog all the questions.
Now
So
you get a bit of a break.
spread the love, Nick.
Hey, thank you. I was wondering, obviously Jason and Jim over 2 decades in leadership positions, being ADs, and Nathan in the leadership through NFL and all book writing. I was wondering if you were to give to your younger selves when you were just starting one piece of advice, reflecting your experience, what advice would that be?
I think we're back over here.
That's a great question.
You made it. For me, I'll say don't take things too personal. I think for sure I'm a sensitive person, and I think one of my guilty is I care, but you can't take things too personal. And, you know, it can be a strength, but it can also be a weakness because you become reactionary. And I'll probably say to myself, you know, enjoy the ride, not be so intent about everything that goes on. And so I think I'd probably have less wrinkles too. So.
It's funny, you were saying that, and I was thinking, boy, I have this desire to be liked, and I always want to be liked, and it bugs me when I'm not. And I'm also very competitive, and so as I look at, you know, the Huva and who's signed up for what, I'm sitting there looking at numbers and going, oh, the person next to me has got 24, and I've only got 22. But in keeping with that, one of the real challenges I've had has been keeping any sort of touchstones or something like that in place to just remind me of either why I'm doing what I'm doing, or why whatever I'm doing matters, or why I still have value. I've now got a keychain that I shared in my last talk that says I'm kind of a big deal, and it's the line from Anchorman, and it's silly, and people who see it think, what an ego on this guy. But the reality is that I have a lot of dark moments, right? When I sit here at this conference and I'm like, why didn't they invite me for the 20-minute keynote in the big room at the beginning, right? And why am I not? They had 42 people there. How am I not one of 42? And I have to stop and go, all right, I know I'm going to have these moments. I know I'm going to have these dark moments. And so this grounding of why am I doing what I'm doing? Because at the end of the day, that doesn't matter. The fact that we're doing whatever, you know, I'm here to do this. And so I have to stop and go, okay, hold on. Let me get re-anchored to what I'm doing and why and my values, because I get wrapped around the axle of the things that are all around me that don't matter as much and really take me to places I don't need to be.
I would tell them.
What would you tell young?
You're the only one that really look back.
Don't
Go way back.
shouldn't have ridden that motorcycle at that time.
Couple stories from 1996.
No,
Chris Hill, is he listening?
I think just again recognizing the people that helped you along the way and that kindness factor. Like, it could have been nicer, because we get competitive, like as athletes or as people, like want to come out ahead, but desire to be liked too. But sometimes a little more kindness would be. I'm a pretty kind person generally, but you could always take some more time for some people that need your time. So. And there'll be a lot of people that need your time.
We got another one right here. Great answers, guys.
Thanks for sharing, guys. So often at these conferences, you get to meet like-minded people, maybe slow down and think about where you are. And so my question is just maybe inspired by these couple of days at the conference or other things. What are you professionally curious about or excited about that might be coming up for you?
I'll go first.
Okay.
So, I was telling Nick and Matt that for me, this conference has come along. I've been coming to these for 25 years, and it's still inspiring to see what work you're doing and hear the war stories and hear what's going on in your leagues and your schools. But and now the ADs are getting classes and bringing in people like Nathan, and we never used to have training for the ADs and child protection, 6 hours now versus not talking about it 5 years ago. So that's inspiring to me. The growth of this organization is like now we're at the table now. We're 30 of us sitting here and we're talking about these issues, and so it's been, and then the education going on, people like Nick taking it to another level, taking it to podcasts around the world. It's inspiring. Child protection is something I'm studying still. I'm learning a lot. Learned a lot from Kathy, learned a lot from the people in our room today, the class we had today. So that's a good job, you guys.
Great. The connections I've made, and then also the idea that, at times I try to be open-minded and try to look for new ways to do things, but this idea of, is there a better way to disseminate some of my material? And as you guys are out doing really cool things, I mean, how best to do that? And so anyway, just open to that. The other thing really specifically is just, I'm still intrigued, and you guys got me thinking about it again with the speech and debate thought the other day of, I'm starting to use AI and I'm starting to figure out how to do it, and are there ways to be more effective at what I do, and to figure that out. And it's a scary field, and kind of like social media for me that I touched on the other day. It's scary, and it's also really powerful and opens a lot of doors. So kind of those two things. Are there ways for me to do some things that are helpful, even if it's not a one-off talk that just totally makes sense, that I understand how to do and it's in my wheelhouse. And anyway, so just a lot of new ideas.
I think when you come to a conference like this, it is rejuvenating again to talk. Coming out of COVID a few years ago, we were really all in a flux of where things were going. Leagues were in dismantling and moving, and there was a lot of stress. And it's great to connect. It's interesting how SCIS kind of intertwines with CEESA, and for Marcos and I, we're members of an organization called PAC, which we started during COVID, and it's neat that when we talk, or how SCIS has grown and how PAC has grown, which we're really proud of, because there was no international league, as Jim knows, in Poland. And coming out of COVID, there was a lot of questions that none of us really could answer. And it's good to see, like with the meeting yesterday, I thought Sergey's and Nathan and Steven and Georgie, I thought it was a great meeting, well run, and a lot of good ideas. And it's nice that some of our schools that are still participating in CEESA really had some positive experiences. I know the Budapest and Bucharest came to our tournament with their B team, so those kids got an opportunity to play, and we had some other schools that are associate members that they got to come and play, and hopefully that's happening in other tournaments as well. And I mean, because really at the end of the day, when we came out of COVID, kids were relearning how to compete, to be on teams, to commit to stuff, and same with us. Like one of the first tournaments after COVID, Juju had it at his place in Vilnius, and I went there as a coach, but I was also there as a parent, and it was pretty emotional because I saw my own kid being stuck for 2 years with COVID, and I think meetings like this shows that we've kind of come out of the tunnel, and there's some exciting times ahead, whether it be with the ISST or SKIS or CEESA or PAC, whatever leagues that you belong to. There's a lot of great things that are happening, and coming to conferences like this really reaffirm that, and it's great to get other people's energy, and when you leave, I'm tired. There's some late nights, but that's part of it. The socializing is huge for us. It's huge for our roles because there is only one or two of us in the school, and I think that's pretty powerful. So.
All right, next question comes from Brad from Bucharest.
Thanks for being up there and answering our questions. Mine's a little bit of something different outside of what we've been talking about, but I'm just to hear your thoughts about like how your journey has evolved. So what was your dream job growing up, and what is your dream job now?
Well, like any young man or whatever, what we were talking about, I wanted to be a professional athlete. I wanted to be a professional athlete for sure. I played sports all my life, and I grew up with a dad that right from the get-go, I played everything, and so I would probably say professional athlete, but I thought I might have been a police officer. So I'm not sure, but to be honest with you, where I'm at right now I wouldn't change. I'm in the job that I feel like I really enjoy, and being a parent, you say that to your kid. I don't really care if you do have a child. I say to my daughter all the time, I don't really care what you become, as long as you're happy, because there's nothing worse. My father was a factory worker for 30 years. It's nothing worse getting up and doing a job that's tough and hard, and so I'm outside of a pro athlete. I'm happy with what I do. I get to hang out with kids. Kids never dull my energy. I never go home and go, oh my God, the kids stress me out. Never. The adults maybe, but I love what I do. Facts.
So I wanted to be a professional athlete, no, I had it all figured out. And what's really remarkable, looking back, the lack of self-awareness. A coach that recruited me to a school was saying, the Yankees have a AA shortstop who's 6'2", 200 pounds, pretty big guy and whatever. And when you become that, because I was 6'2", 150 at the time in high school, and now I'm 160. So anyway, I apparently should be eating eggs and working out more with Jason. But anyway, I'm on a different path than that still. But I was in a team meeting on the football team at Duke. We had this team meeting, and somebody came in and talked to us. I don't remember what or why. And they said, "How many of you all are going to go on to play professionally?" Right? And so Duke in the 1980s, how percentage-wise, what do you think? Right? Like 0.00. That's pretty much what it was. I think 2 guys off my team went, and 80% of the hands went up, right? Including mine, the backup kicker, right? So we're all, anyway, so that was it. And then it became a general manager, and I was on that path with the Bucks, and they were having me do scouting and sending me out to do stuff. And so I thought, okay, I want to be a general manager, and the Chicago Bears made me an offer to be their assistant GM, and the Bucks blocked me, and then the Bucks fired me, and then I decided maybe this isn't such a great goal. And now I should say what Jason said, that I just love what I do. And I do love these settings of being with you all and doing this. So I want to continue to do that, but I also want to be a novelist. And I really have to get off my duff and write that novel that I've been working on. So anyway, so that's still out there for me to do. But this has been fun, and thanks for asking.
I wanted to be a novelist too.
Thought you were going to see a country singer.
Stand up, just a little stand up. And it's a great question. Like as a kid, you grew up with the sports and you want more of the sports. And then how to be involved with sports and figure it out that way, and figure out, that these schools exist and that we can come work in them, and they want people with our talents to come over and help modify kids. And my journey was a little different. I've just recently retired about 6 months ago, and the only thing I'm missing, other than you guys, is the kids, that daily interaction with the 9th grade kid that's just asking you the same questions over and over again, but needs to talk to somebody. Those types of interactions. You have a what is it, 1,000 interactions a day as an AD, and 90%, 95% are really positive. Then you have a few that didn't go so well. But I miss that stimulus of the kids. So yeah, it was a great job, great career doing this. What you're doing, we're all so fortunate.
So kind of a follow-up to that, which it's kind of from our list, we drafted up. Obviously, along those lines, you chose your career path or whatever, changed from your original goal to be something else. There's some risk involved. So maybe you guys can talk a little bit about, was there a risk you took that worked well, and were you glad you took that risk?
Back to you. Should I start once? I can start once. So I was in a book study one time when I was living in Tampa. I'd just been fired by the Bucks. And it was really interesting how, and Pip and I have a different take on this. We were talking about it last night. But anyway, I'd just been fired by the Bucks, and they said, what's the biggest, so there were a bunch of 20-somethings, I'm approaching 40, and they said, what's the riskiest thing you've ever done? And I said, well, walking on to play college football, right, with my size and my whatever. And to do that and to do it at Division I level, I thought that was the riskiest thing. And I went after them, and they had said rafting this, I forget, New River in West Virginia was one, and the other went skydiving or something like that. And totally physically frightening things that I'm never going to try. I might do the river rafting. Who knows, I might do them both. Anyway, and they looked at me and they went, no, but we mean really risky. And I'm like, well, I thought doing that was pretty scary. And they went, no, risky. And I knew what they were getting at, but I still kept coming back to this thought that, again, I shared last night with Pip and I've shared with others, that it's amazing to me what you guys do, and that you leave one job in November and start on a new continent and whatever, or that you're working internationally or just working with kids. I find that remarkable. One of the biggest risks I took was that, and then deciding I was going to write a book, and ended up unemployed for 3 years, and those were dark times, and talked about that in my resilience talk, and still those thoughts come back. But again, looking back, and you think all the doors that were opened in a path that even when I was trying to do that, I couldn't see where this possibly might lead, that I'm sitting in Split, right? I mean, there's no way in 2004, and I'm like, I should write a book about Tony, that I could have ever seen something like this. So yeah, it worked out pretty well.
Me? I think probably what started me on this path of being overseas. I was playing college football, and I got hurt back then. There was no real studies of concussions, and I was really hurt to the point where I had no strength in my body because I had damaged my frontal lobe. And I was in my last year of university. Wasn't a great student, but the defensive coach at the time, his wife, and I worked in a fitness room together. And I had spent parts of 2 summers working with poor people in Mexico in the state of Morelos and Guerrero. And she, the wife, worked in a business office, and she said, there's a school coming from Mexico. You should apply. And I thought, no, I'm going to try to apply for teacher's college and try to play more football. And her husband said to me, great guy, still a great coach in Canada, won a few Vanier Cups, great guy. And he said, get on with your life. And if you get this job, get the hell out of here and experience. Not many people get a chance. And then we're talking Torreon, Mexico. We're not talking Puerto Vallarta or Cancun. This is a place, Jim will tell you, it's up north, Mexico. And I really hadn't been many places in my life. Both my parents were blue-collar people, hadn't traveled much. And long story short, I ended up getting this job. And it's been a wonderful experience. I saw countries that I couldn't even pronounce. when I first came and didn't even know about him. And I was very fortunate. My father was a Navy man. He spent 8 years. He was on the sea. Ironically, his favorite place was Malta, where we were last year. And he used to tell me about, just places that he had been. And so I never really in a million years thought I'd be, be in places like this. And it's interesting, I'm sitting with, Rena, Marcos, and Alex, and we're sitting there just having lunch out there, and Matt, excuse me. And I just look at him like, wow, there's the sea. We're sitting here, like we have a really charmed life that at times, I take 2 steps back and I'm like, man, some of my friends have never been out of the Toronto area, and if they have, maybe like to Jamaica, where they, where their parents had immigrated, and that's all they know. And I've had experiences where I don't know, I just never ever dreamt, and I don't take anything for granted. I mean, this year alone, I've been to Helsinki and Romania, and it's a very fortunate and awesome opportunity, and it really was from a risk of just being challenged. And I don't know if I never took that interview, I don't know where I would be. And I met my wife, my first teaching job. My daughter was born overseas, and she's seen many things. And I used to say to my friend, I said, my daughter's what is the doll? It's the American Girl doll. I used to say my daughter's American Girl doll has more stamps in its passport than most of the people in my neighborhood that I grew up in. And so, and that really was all from a risk. So, sorry to be long-winded.
Mine's similar, just taking the risk to come overseas. And I said, okay, we'll be back in 2 years. And then 30 years go by and we're still overseas. So anyway, just taking that first leap, like a lot of us have in this room. We're sitting in a country that's, most of us, is not our country. We're here, we're working, we're living, and I've told people I feel more at home in this group of international people than I do sometimes in my home country. Not a political statement, but sometimes you feel more at ease with someone that has your similar experiences. What schools were you at? Where have you been? Where have you traveled to? What was your job? In this international world, I heard it compared to, or like, whatever, 20,000 international teachers. It's like the state of California for teachers, and everyone knows somebody else throughout that world, and there's always a connection when we talk. So it's just the risk of taking that chance. Convincing my wife was a big risk too. But she was a traveler too, and she's ready to go.
Okay, Sergey's in the back.
Piggybacking to these 2 last answers, I want to ask you, when you start your overseas career, have there been any lessons that you learned in being, like, working in other countries, that have, how maybe some cultures have shaped you, who you are? Maybe you can comment on that.
Go ahead. Yeah.
My second place I went was the Philippines, and I really had not been, like I said, to many places. And diplomacy could have been a word in Russian for me, because just, the customs there were different. And I was extremely fortunate to meet a man named Dick Kreitzar. They called him Dr. K. He was kind of the equivalent of Kathy in Asia. He ran what's called Irkos. And he was from a similar background as me. And we just bonded, became like a second dad. And he's passed away now, but I owe that guy so much, because he just mentored me to, one, professionally, to, try to progress. I went and ended up getting my master's because of him, but also just trying to, you're not in North Guelph anymore. you have to, learn and understand different people. And I grew up in a very multicultural area, very multicultural. Just southwest of Toronto, grew up with, people from West Indian, Jamaican, Trinidadian, Italian, East Indian, Vietnamese, Cambodian, all in like one area. But it's different when you're in someone else's country. And when I had a cousin that lived in Bani, Dominican Republic, and I took a job in the Dominican, and I was just like, it was like a fish jumping back in water. It was the culture that just suited everything about me, and blended well. there and loved it. It was I consider it just as much home as I do back in Canada. It was an amazing experience, and if you ever have a chance to work or live in the Caribbean, I highly recommend it. It's how people view family and life. We're so focused in North America growing up of who has what, and even in this kind of business, who teaches where or who works where. Dominican, it was really just about seizing the day and enjoying life, and it was a wonderful experience that I felt like shaped a lot of who I am now as a older person, I guess.
Jim, what about you? I think living in Poland was a formative, just a great respect for the Polish people and their history, and those people remain some of my best friends. You don't get invited to a wedding unless you live there for 10 years or 5 years. So they when they embrace you totally. So those types of relationships that you built over the years, and being sensitive to their culture too, being sensitive. And, as coming from Latin America and then coming to Poland, my kids were taking the city buses, and they would say, why doesn't anyone talk on the buses in Poland? In Mexico, there's music and someone's singing and someone's begging, and it was like people just sit like this. I said, it's been a long 40 years here. And it was just just being respectful of their culture and taking time to, get to know them. And yeah, it's just.
All right, well, I'm gonna have it. You got nothing.
What I learned overseas? Yeah, no, I got nothing.
In the last 3 days. In the last 3 days, what'd you learn? All right, well, we'll.
Marcos.
Do we have time? We do.
We do. We have time for you. We always have time for you, Marcos.
Just coming back, this conference has been about leadership. Do you think the concept of leadership has changed since you started your job as an AD, or you used to play or work at the Tampa Buccaneers? Has the concept changed of leadership? And if yes, how?
Right. I'll go first this time.
Sure.
All right.
Yeah.
So what I've seen coming back to the conference the last 3 years, 4 years, before it used to be guys like Matt and I and Jason. Now it's people from the countries are the ADs, people from the host countries. And so it's a change that it's not a lockdown that you had to be American educated or UK educated person to be the ADs. Now it's, and I just see it as a big benefit that people that understand the sports leagues, the cultures, the coaches they're working with. And so I see it as a real positive. That's just an observation from being away and then coming back.
I think we're in a stage too now. I call it like the New Jack era, where a lot of these old heads are now retiring, and we have new people that are running schools that are not just men. A lot of female leaders, and that's the same in with our roles, activities directors and athletic directors. Every year there's more female ADs that are taking these roles, as opposed to, I'm sure, 10. When I was in Southeast Asia for 5 years, it was 12 guys. Where now there's more female, there's more younger athletic directors coming in, and that's great. Because who doesn't want to have new ideas and learn, and I think that's really a big difference that I've seen in international education, is that we're in a new era of leadership, as new people are coming up. So
a couple of observations on just the concept of leadership and how I think it has changed. I've spoken a couple of times now to the U.S. Army Training and Doctrine Command, and the first time I did it, totally intimidated, totally thinking, what in the world am I doing here? And I was on a panelist meeting and a general, and we're about to go live, And he leaned over and he said, I am so glad you're here, because our folks will want to hear your sports stories and stuff, and it's good to hear stories from outside of the Army. And he said, but more importantly, we are trying to get rid of that old officer and a gentleman, drill sergeant, breaking somebody down, demoralizing them, and this is how you lead, is you command and you control and you dictate. And now we need more collaborative leaders, and we need to get those folks out of the Army and help create relationships and bonds and just put a different face on leadership. And then a couple of months ago, so I thought that was very enlightening. A couple of months ago, same concept. I was at a coaches clinic, basketball coaches clinic, about 60 professional and college coaches, and I won't name the now retired professional coach, but you'd know him, and he said, I'm so glad I'm not coaching now, because if somebody screws up, and his language is colorful, more colorful than mine, but if somebody makes a mistake, I'm not going to put my arm around them and tell them they did great, and to heck with that, and I'm not going to pat you on the back. If you were terrible, I'm going to tell you were terrible, and whatever. And the very next coach to speak, I thought did a fantastic job. He's now the head coach of the University of South Carolina, and I thought he did a fantastic job of navigating the whole contradicting the guy who just spoke without contradicting him directly. And he said, look, so much of life, so much of leadership is about relationships. And I don't have to tell you played well. If you didn't give effort, if you didn't have a great game, I don't have to tell you that. But I also can put my arm around you and say, hey, here's some things we can work on. What did you think about today? I don't have to accept what's happened, but I also don't have to treat you in a way that makes you feel less than. And he said, at the end of the day, my job is not to be liked, but my job is to be trusted. And I don't trust a lot of people personally that I don't like. And he said, so I have to be careful about all the time, careful about that, and decide that if I'm going to be somebody they trust, but I'm not willing to build a relationship and I'm not willing to treat them in the right way, then yes, I don't have to be liked, but I do need to be trusted, and that's going to impact how I treat people. And I think that's a different model than we saw when I was playing. And you just did what you were told and then slumped back to where you started from.
Awesome answers. I think one more softball question for all of you to wrap us up. Take it easy. Like we do often on the podcast. Tell us one cool, nice thing, something about the city that you're in now, or state. So we have Warsaw, Gainesville, and somewhere in Montana.
Or Arizona.
Something nice about.
What's a cool thing? Eat pierogies. I don't know. That's a bad example. Want to bowl and eat pierogies.
Does craft beer qualify?
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. For me, being in Missoula, Montana is been nice with a university nearby, and I'm able to walk into the football practice and watch a game, or watch practice, or watch athletics still kind of from afar. So I've enjoyed that, and then also there's music, and there's water. And I used to ski, but I'm not skiing now. But those types of things are the cool place in Montana. Come to Montana.
So Gainesville, Florida, northern Florida. One of the things that my other Gainesvillians complain about are the 50,000 university students that are in town out of our 175,000 residents. But I realized when I moved back 12 years ago, I flipped it on its head, and I realized that the energy that they bring is part of what really makes it so vibrant, right? And the students, and the fact that I actually birthed two of them, right? And so I do love my own college students who are there, or didn't birth them, but you know what I mean. But anyway, so can we edit that part? Let's edit that part. Yeah, my wife's gonna be like, what? You almost passed out. You certainly didn't do the hard stuff. Yeah. So anyway, but that, and then we have like alligators, which are kind of cool, and they usually don't bother you. And so I just, and then we have kind of a change of seasons. So it's not South Florida, and we do get, it'll get down to the 30s. So what's that? Almost zero, right? Celsius. See, look at me. 2 days here in Split. I thought you wanted me to say something nice about Split, and I'm like, well, that's going to be. We don't have enough time for that. But Gainesville is fantastic, and I do love being there. So thank you.
Warsaw, Poland, and I actually live outside in a place called Konstancin. I think one of the nice things with Warsaw is, Jim mentioned, people are very nice, but you know, with what's going on all around the world right now with so much turmoil, it just seems Warsaw, Constantin is a very calm place. It's you know, it is quite quiet, and I think in my older years, I think I'm really starting to enjoy that. So it is really a safe place right now, and I think that should be enjoyed with what everything, you know, all the turmoil that's going on right now in the world. So I'll leave it at that.
But are there good pierogies?
Yeah, pierogies are good. Yep. Yeah. I do have to say, I like my food a little spicy, so that's.
Pierogies are good.
Yeah. Pierogies are good.
All right. All right, guys. Well, we want to thank our panelists for joining us today and the insights they've given us to all these topics. Thank you to the audience for the questions and the participation. I think this is a great way to wrap up the CEESA conference, other than the gala tonight, which will be led on the dance floor by Waleed, maybe later on. And just want to thank everybody for coming out to this session. We hope you enjoyed it. You got some takeaways that will help you or be inspiring for you as you head into the last season of this school year. And thanks everybody for coming out, and we hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much.
Kukri Sports is a clothing brand that specializes in providing the world's most prestigious schools with bespoke made and designed team uniforms. If you're frustrated by inconsistent colors, branding, costs, and sizing across your teams, then it's time to email someone at Kukri Sports today. When you email contact@kukrisports.com, tell them about the Globetrottin ADs, and you'll receive a special offer on your coach or PE staff order. This has been another episode of the Globetrottin ADs. We hoped you enjoyed it, and until the next episode drops, head over to globetrottinads.com or visit us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram